Would you like the good news or the bad news? You see, modern society is very much a fan of that phrase, life has no purpose, it's up to you to discover your purpose. Those who say this kind of thing give little practical insight into actually what purpose means and how you even go about finding your purpose in an optimum way. So we're going to discuss the mathematics behind finding purpose. However, there is a slightly darker side to this, so proceed with caution. To really illustrate this point, I made an online game called The Purpose Game. Make sure you hang around for that. So to start things off, we need some kind of metric for purpose. We need some kind of metric to measure how much purpose you have in life, how much satisfaction you have. So for example, a perfect 100 when you die would be considered a perfect life, a perfectly satisfied and purpose-filled life. Now, of course, this is very deeply tailored to you. Everyone has different metrics for how they define their own purpose points. So for example, it might be happiness or wealth or social status or how much impact you've had on the world. There are literally millions of things that could all feed into this one metric, and it could be a combination of many different things, for example. But we're just going to kind of abstract and sidestep that whole problem and just call it purpose points and use that to kind of illustrate the point. Okay, so now we can have some fun. Let's play a game. Imagine that I lay 100 cards out in front of you. On the back of each of these cards are the number of purpose points that the card will give you. So what these purpose points mean, again, is up to you to determine. And each of these cards represents a different path that you could take in order to get points. One card might be becoming a doctor, another card might be being an entrepreneur, another card might be leading a community or a family. But to find out the number of points that you get from a card, you need to turn it over. You need to be a doctor for a bit to discover the number of points that you'll get for being a doctor. So great, let's say that you pick doctor. You go to medical school for a few years, you graduate, you go and become a doctor at the local hospital. You start working as a doctor, working on the wards, improving people's lives. A few years later, you're able to kind of turn the card over and discover actually the amount of purpose points that is given you, and you get 2. Well, that seems pretty low, you think? I've just worked all this time to become a doctor and I'm miserable. Brilliant. I guess I'll just pick something else then. So you go back to your cards and you think, okay, you know what? I want to become a YouTuber. So you go out, you start your YouTube channel, you quit your doctoring, you start a YouTube channel and you start hustling and maybe you get some subscribers and you start making videos online. Now again, you know, after some time, you're able to discover actually how many purpose points it gives you. So you turn the card over and you see 1. Brilliant. Okay, great, you think. 1. That's great. I quit being a doctor to become a YouTuber. Fantastic. And I'm miserable. Anyway, I guess I'll just pick something else. So then you look at the cards again and you think, damn, I really want to become a beekeeper. So you go and become a beekeeper. You buy beekeeper outfit, you buy all the get up that you need in order to become a beekeeper. And you become a beekeeper for a bit. You love working in nature, in the sun, and caring for the bees and caring for the plants and the animals and the world around you. After a few years, you turn the card over and in front of you, you see a perfect 10. You have found the profession that deeply motivates you, that gives you a sense of purpose and gives you an intense sense of feeling. Every morning you wake up with a smile on your face. Oh no, would you look at that? You've only gone and died. Oh, well, that's a shame. Ah, no, not this shit again. So last time you ended with a measly 13 out of 30, but this time you're determined to do it right. You're determined to get an incredibly high score. You turn to computer science and you discover the optimal stopping problem. Basically, you have this huge pool of options. How long do you spend exploring those options, uncovering new cards, discovering their purpose points? And how long do you spend exploiting them? How long do you spend picking one of those options and sticking with it to maximize your overall purpose points? The solution is known as the look then leap rule. Basically, you look at the first 37% of options. So here's an example. You might have 10 cards in front of you. You look at the first 4 cards and then you choose the best card out of those. Now, I know that it sounds like I just pulled 37% out of Moby Dick's blowhole, but let's look at some examples to really illustrate this point. Imagine that you are about to make a really important life decision. Which horse to purchase for the ball on Saturday night? So your horse guy comes up to you and he offers you a set of horses, and he says that if you decline one of the horses, then that option is gone. So for each horse that comes to you, you have to accept or reject it. Now, if you're offered 2 horses, the probability of you accepting the correct horse, the most optimum horse, is 50-50. If you buy the first horse, then the second one might have been better, and if you skip over the first one and go to the second one, then the first one might have been better. So therefore, the chances of you getting the correct answer is 50-50. So if there's 3 horses, then the probability at random is 1 in 3. Can you do better than that? So look at the first horse and then move on to the next one. If the next horse is better than the first horse, then you accept it. And if it's worse, then you move on to the third one. And so what this means is that your probabilities have gone to half rather than 1 in 3. You've achieved better than random. And so if you keep adding more and more horses to the pool that is available to you, this number, the point at which you need to stop looking at horses and switch to leaping and choosing the best horse, settles to 1 over e. And interestingly, this concept of spending 37% of the time looking at the pool and then making a decision also applies to time. So you can spend 37% of the time looking at the options and then the rest choosing an option. So if you want to live to 100, then you spend 37 years looking around and exploring and then exploiting for the rest. So look, the reality of trying new things is that the value of finding something amazing only goes down over time as the remaining opportunities to savor it decrease. Imagine that you're traveling and it's your last night in a beautiful city. You walk around and you find this brand new cafe, and it is just the most beautiful cafe inside of the city. Now, unfortunately, it's your last evening, and so you won't be able to return and you won't be able to savor it. The interval here very much makes the strategy. Finding a beautiful cafe on your last night doesn't give any room to savor and enjoy it. And so I made this card game into a game that you can go and play, and it's a really sobering reality. You'll start choosing some cards, and maybe on your first go, you'll hit a 100, and you'll get a perfect 100 by the end of the 10 moves. Other times, you'll only be hitting 1s and 2s, and the elusive 10 will be in there somewhere. It's a sobering reality to wake up to, that our purpose points in life is very much determined by randomness. How likely are we to actually find that 10 out of 10 card? And tragically, it actually gets worse. This model is really quite flawed. In real life, the purpose points on the card are constantly changing. The metric that you use for purpose points could change, the card might no longer even be available, and the purpose points themselves might just change as well. And so this model isn't an accurate reflection of the complexity of real life. If the purpose points on the cards are constantly changing every time you fix on it, there's no mathematical solution to that. It's just entirely random. And it even gets worse. The cards that you have to choose from yourself are local to you. There is actually a global set of cards that are beyond the scope of what you can see, and so therefore the cards that you might be able to choose from are incredibly limited, and the one that really satisfies you might be out of your perception. And it even gets worse than this. There's a high cost of switching. Imagine you start off being an investor, right? If you then spend the next 100 years working and investing, the compound interest of that is going to add up, and so you're going to be intensely successful when you're 100. Warren Buffett started investing when he was incredibly young, and the compound interest of that built up. What if when Warren Buffett got to 50, he decided, actually, you know what, I want to go and become an artist? Exploiting a card over a long period of time gives you experience, and this experience might even actually raise the purpose points that you get from the card. Therefore, if you switch to something else, you lose all of that experience, and it could have become a 10 one day if you'd made it and you'd stuck around with it. So I hope that I've illustrated that there are literally infinite paths in order to get purpose, in order to get purpose points in life. You could become an astronaut, a writer, a YouTuber, a teacher. You could start a family, lead a rebellion, make $1 billion, join a group of scholars, or become a potter. It's like you're stood in a giant bookstore and there's thousands and billions of books in front of you, and someone is stood next to you saying, you need to pick a book. How is anyone to choose a book from the billions of options? The book that you're reading right now is probably not the optimum choice. Okay, so what can we actually learn from this? How can we apply this to our life? Well, the first thing to recognize is nobody has it all worked out. People often seem like they have it all figured out, and they absolutely don't. The mathematics is against them. It is completely fine to not know where you are in life or where you are headed. That is the norm of the human condition. The second thing that we can take away is to be grateful. If you found something that you really enjoy, be grateful that you found it. The likelihood that you'll ever find a perfect 10 is incredibly low. If you found something that you love doing, remember the probabilities were against you. Remember to lift as you climb and express gratitude every single day. The other thing that we can learn is to look at other people. You do have an advantage. Other people are playing this exact same game. You can watch what they do to gather information about what works and what doesn't work without having to do the same thing they did. Watch what books other people are reading. For example, when I was younger, I really wanted to be a lawyer. And then I actually met one. This is why talking to the elderly can prove incredibly fruitful. They have looked under many of these cards and seen them for what they truly are. For example, you may believe that pursuing money may produce meaning in your life. Consider talking to a variety of old people and ask them whether the pursuit of wealth and luxury really gave them satisfaction. And finally, we can kind of become anti-fragile to all of this. Instead of seeing the cards as your purpose, see finding your purpose as the purpose. Recognize that this is a horrific and absurd game that we all play. This game of cards and this game of meaning is something that we're all stuck in. This means that every time you try something new or exploit something or make a move, you're just living your purpose. You're rebelling against the absurdity of the nature of this game. You will feel fulfilled because you realize that the whole game itself is the purpose. And this is what Camus means by rebellion is your purpose. Even though you recognize that this is the game, you're going to play it anyway. You're going to stand in that library, look around at the infinite options, pick a book and start reading. When I was younger, I would stare at these cards and try to reason my way into finding purpose. I would consider each possible card deeply and attempt to think my way into discovering their purpose score. Sure, you can look at other people as a kind of indicator, but unless you actually truly get into it, you don't know how it's going to align with you. Therefore, in order to discover our purpose, we need to actually take action and not just sit staring at the cards. Here is a beautiful quote by Sylvia Plath. I saw my life branching out before me like the green fig tree in a story. From the tip of every branch, like a fat purple fig, a wonderful future beckoned and winked. One future was a husband and a happy home and children. Another fig was a famous poet. Another fig was a famous professor. And another fig was E.G., the amazing editor. And another fig was Europe and Africa and South America. And another fig was Constantine and Socrates and Athena and a pack of other lovers with queer names and offbeat professions. And another fig was an Olympic lady crew champion. And beyond and above these figs were many more figs I couldn't quite make out. I saw myself sitting in the crotch of the fig tree, starving to death, just because I couldn't make up my mind which of the figs I would choose. I wanted each and every one of them, but choosing one meant losing all the rest. And as I sat there, unable to decide, the figs began to wrinkle and go black. And one by one, they plopped to the ground at my feet.